It began with a knock, not the knock of neighbors or friends, but a sharp, purposeful knock, one that held power, authority, and ultimatum. Kody Brown, lounging in his living room of the Flagstaff home, hardly glanced up at his phone. The kids were spread out around the house. Robyn was in the kitchen, and life, though strained and broken, was chugging along normally. That is, until he opened the door. On the porch stood a court official, dressed in somber colors with a stern face that indicated this was no social visit. He delivered a heavy envelope to Kody, said nothing, just verified his identity, nodded once, and headed off. As soon as the envelope was in Kody's hand, he felt something change within him. He gazed at it for a second too long, already sensing, deep inside, this was not good. He shut the door slowly, as if hoping the weight of the moment would remain outside. But it had already settled within the house. Robyn entered, rubbing hands dry on a kitchen towel. "What is it?" she asked. Surveying his face, he did not reply, he just tore the seal off. The first thing he noticed was the name. Christine Brown. Then the second, Janelle Brown, and the heading Petition for Civil Hearing, Financial Dispute, Family Trust Holdings, and Real Property Assets. His heart stopped. His hands shook, slightly, as he leafed through the pages. It wasn't one signature. Two. Christine and Janelle in unison had filed a civil action against him. After decades of shared devotion, shared weddings, shared kids, and shared TV time, this wasn't about the gradual, agonizing disintegration of a family. This was more than that. This was the law intervening. This was their intimate fractures brought into the glare of a courtroom. Christine had always been the one to smile through pain, to hold back her hurt for the sake of the children. But her departure months earlier had been a quiet rebellion. Now, it roared in legal ink. Janelle, pragmatic and calm, had tolerated so much, RV living while Robyn got a brand new house, being excluded from financial decisions, being told she didn't need her name on property paperwork. But apparently she wasn't tolerating anymore. The document was detailed, chillingly so. They weren't just filing to say we're done. They wanted answers. They wanted records. They wanted compensation for years of what they called mismanaged collective finances, and for the suspicious favoritism Kody had shown toward Robyn and her children. Attached to the petition were screenshots, emails, text messages, and a breakdown of the family's TLC earnings over the past decade. Christine claimed she'd never seen a full financial statement, despite being on the show for years. Janelle alleged that she was promised shared ownership of the Coyote Pass property, yet her name was missing from every title. There was one especially incriminating passage, a line-by-line account of money taken out of the family account during a 3-year period. The expenses told a tale: Robyn's furniture, Robyn's SUV, Robyn's medical expenses, Robyn's children's tuition. Christine had financed her daughter's surgery alone. Janelle had turned to side hustles, just to keep her head above water. The notice called for complete financial disclosure, including bank statements from the Brown family LLC deeds, and title papers for all the shared property. A forensic audit of the past 5 years' spending, ordered by a court. Kody slammed the packet down on the table, and strode over to the window. He did not say anything. He could not. Robyn demanded again. "What is it?" He turned slowly and spoke in a low, almost stunned voice. "They're suing me. Christine and Janelle, they want the court involved." She stood there, towel still wrapped in her hands. "For what?" Kody said nothing at first. He wasn't simply reading a court case. He was living through all the choices he'd made for the last decade. Every fight, every meal when Christine was quiet, every time Janelle inquired about the property, and he sidestepped it. Every time he'd pushed their emotions aside because he thought they'd always remain. He had believed his family was pliable enough to flex. He never imagined that they would snap, but they had, and now, the fissures were exposed on legal paper. He rang Mary later that evening. The final fraying thread. The one wife who hadn't left completely, but hadn't stayed completely either. She listened, weary and silent. "They're not wrong," she said softly. "You ceased treating it as a family years ago." He didn't protest. There was nothing to say. The internet picked up on the legal filing in a matter of days. TMZ had a banner. Reddit went wild. Old footage from the show were reposted, examined, dissected. All of the times that Kody complimented Robyn. All of the times he interrupted Christine. All of the times Janelle seemed crestfallen. The courtroom wasn't just real anymore. It was public. Fans began taking sides. Christine's fans praised her courage. Janelle's supporters dubbed her the sole sane woman in the melee. Kody's name was used as a joke in TikTok videos and Twitter streams. And Robyn? She became the face of a divided house. Some sympathized with her. Others blamed her for everything. But the actual storm had only just started. The court hearing was scheduled for 6 weeks' time. Christine and Janelle were mobilizing witnesses, creating a paper trail. The judge ruling on the case had already issued interim injunctions. Kody could not sell or transfer any Brown family LLC assets, or cash pending further notice. Robyn slept less. Kody paced more. The children stuck in the middle asked quiet questions. Are you going to jail? Are we still a family? The answers were eluding Kody, because he didn't know anymore. He once belonged to a plural family. Now he was the defendant in a civil suit filed by the women who had once trusted him with everything. What started as a knock at the door now became a full-blown reckoning. A family once founded on common convictions now found themselves on either side of a courtroom. Following is the longer session 1,500 words of your courtroom-themed sister wives' tale, composed without headings and fully optimized for YouTube storytelling. The courtroom was quiet, perhaps too quiet for a family that once lived so boisterously. The familiar sound of heels clicking over sleek tile was louder than it needed to be. The wooden benches, usually occupied by strangers in the typical court case, were crowded with reporters, local onlookers, and even a couple of familiar faces from around Flagstaff. Everyone was eager to get a front-row seat to the drama of a family once celebrated on national television. Kody Brown entered the courtroom first. His jaw clenched, his face flushed, and his stance stiff. He had a dark suit on, too dressy for the man audiences recalled wearing leather jackets and jeans. But the suit couldn't hide the unease creeping over his skin. Robyn followed right behind him, her face ashen, her eyes darting around the room like a deer in the midst of wolves. They occupied the left side of the courtroom, their lawyers already seated, flipping through binders and whispering tactics under their breath. In a matter of moments, the doors opened again, and this time, the room changed. Christine entered first. Her hair was pulled back, her blazer clean, and her expression unreadable. The smiling, bubbly woman that America had adored was gone. This Christine was determined, deliberate, and finished with silence. Janelle came in right behind her, not far removed from the same heart shield. She held a bulky leather binder full to the top with papers, bank statements, emails, financial documents, and personal letters months old. They sat in front of Kody and Robyn, not looking at each other, not saying a word. The space between them was physical, sure, but also spiritual, emotional, permanent. A couple of whispers swirled through the gallery in the courtroom, but it fell silent the instant the bailiff walked in and called out the judge's entrance. They all rose. The judge was a woman in her early 60s with very sharp eyes and a voice that didn't waste any syllables. She sat, pulled down her robe, and gave the room a warning stare before continuing. Case in session, she announced. Case number 376. F.J. Brown vs. Brown. Plaintiffs Christine Brown and Janelle Brown. Defendant Kody Brown. The room hummed with unspoken words. Christine's lawyer went first. A tightly dressed woman with a cool, authoritative voice. She strode into the middle of the courtroom and delivered her words with the kind of certainty forged on rock-solid proof and holy indignation. Your Honor, she started, our clients demand openness. For more than 20 years, they made an equal contribution to a shared family group. A group projected to the outside world as equal, harmonious, and built on shared values. They raised children, forsook careers, enabled their husbands' ambitions, and worked scrupulously to keep a family intact under a set of beliefs that demanded more of them than most women would ever have been prepared to provide. And now, they're left out, financially, emotionally, and legally. She hesitated, then went on. For years they were assured they had equal stakes in property, in finances, in the future. But when they asked to see the documents, when they asked to confirm what was theirs, they were told to trust the process. But trust is not a budget, and they are entitled to greater than fuzzy guarantees and spiritual affirmations. They are entitled to legal specificity. She took a step back. Everyone's attention went to Janelle, who requested to speak on her own. The courtroom dropped into complete silence once again as she rose. She approached the microphone slowly, opened her file, and took out a duplicate of a land map. Coyote Pass. I helped construct this family, she started. Her tone was even but bore the fatigue of years. I helped raise all the children, even the ones that weren't biologically mine. I helped purchase that land with the understanding that it would be for all of us, for all the wives and kids, so they'd have something stable when we're gone. She raised the diagram. But then when I asked to look at the deeds, I only saw two names. Kody and Robyn. My name wasn't on it. Christine's name wasn't on it. Not even Mary's name was on it. Only theirs. How does that happen? How does a family that's all about unity and equality decide, without any discussion, that we don't belong anymore? Janelle stared at Kody now. Her eyes didn't flicker. Your Honor, she turned to the judge. I'm not here seeking revenge. I'm here because I must defend what is mine. And I must know that my children will inherit what I worked so hard for. Because if I don't do this now, then all that I gave will be viewed as if it never existed. A murmur of assent from a few in the gallery. Even the judge's face relaxed a little. Kody's attorney rose next. A middle-aged man with a smooth tone and slicked back hair. He strode to the center, cleared his throat, and started. Your Honor, as much as we appreciate the emotional passion of the plaintiff's testimony, we must recognize as well that the arrangement of this family was never legal in the traditional sense. These marriages, though spiritual and emotional, were not state law enforceable, except for the legally wedded union of Mr. Brown and Robyn Brown. So all claims to property or joint assets, absent written contracts, are regretfully unenforceable. He turned a page in his binder. What we are facing, Your Honor, is a case constructed on expectation, not contracts. These women entered into a plural family with the knowledge that only one of the marriages would be legal. That's always been the circumstance of their religious system. Mr. Brown has provided for his family in accordance with his ability, and we contend that any claims of money against him are at best speculative. Before he could get out his next few words, the judge held up a hand. I'm going to interrupt you there, counsel. He stood still. Informal marriage, she declared clearly, does not imply informal fiscal obligation. If these women contributed fiscally to the acquisition of property, raising of children, or accumulation of wealth within a family entity, even one that was never formally established legally, then they can quite possibly have claim to fair remuneration. She fixed her gaze on Kody now. And if this court determines that Mr. Brown misled ownership or access to financial assets in the name of mutual family trust, that will be taken seriously. Kody squirmed in his chair. Robyn leaned forward to whisper something to him, but he said nothing. Christine's attorney rose again. We'd also like to enter as evidence emails and texts between 2018 and 2022, where Mr. Brown constantly uses the terminology our land, and states clearly that all of the wives would have a house constructed there. We have bank receipts indicating both Janelle and Christine contributed money from their personal funds towards the down payment and upkeep. The bailiff took a folder and presented it to the judge. There was a visible response in the room when the judge started reading the top page. Kody's own words, of promising equity, family fairness, and long-term plans. Words that now rested in stark contrast to the ownership papers shutting out everyone but him and Robyn. Christine still hadn't spoken, but now she stood. She made her way to the front slowly. Her voice was soft but firm. I believed him, she said. I believed in the vision of what we were creating. I gave him my loyalty. I gave him children. I gave him my youth, my health, and my emotional stability. And when I began to ask questions, I was treated like a traitor. She turned to Kody. I didn't betray this family. You did, and you did it slowly, while smiling. The courtroom was silent once more. The judge gazed down at the mounting pile of evidence, then up at the plaintiffs. I've seen enough for today, she said. We will reconvene tomorrow. Mr. Brown, your legal team is instructed to prepare all financial records related to the Brown Family LLC and personal property transactions within the next 72 hours. Failure to comply will result in a court order compelling disclosure. She banged the gavel once. The sound rang out like thunder. Kody got up slowly, his face pale. Robyn refused to meet anyone's eye as she accompanied them out. Christine and Janelle sat frozen a little longer, inhaling the quiet. Then they got up, not with triumph, but with a sort of anguished determination, because this wasn't finished. Not by a long way. The courtroom hummed a little the next morning, the same subdued tension in the air, but denser now. The tempest that had begun with paperwork was now an eruption of emotions, betrayal, and concrete evidence. Today the center of attention was Robyn. She walked into the courtroom in dark clothes, her eyes already puffy, her demeanor less defensive than the previous day. It was as if she had borne the weight of the downfall of the entire family on her, and now stood ready, perhaps even desperate, to justify herself. She let Kody hold her hand a little longer than normal. Before she approached the stand, she breathed, grasping the sides of the witness stand, as though holding on for dear life. And then the tears started, soft at first, then growing stronger with each statement. I didn't ask for any of this, she whispered through sobs, her voice shaking with remorse and sadness. I never wanted to take anyone's place. I just wanted to belong to a family. That's all I ever wanted. The room was still, drinking in her sorrow. When I came into this family, I knew it was messy, she went on. But I thought I was entering into a unit that loved that new sacrifice. I thought I was bringing calm, not conflict. And now I'm the one everybody looks at like I torched it all. She wiped her eyes with a tissue, while Christine and Janelle watched. Christine didn't flinch. Her jaw was clenched, her arms folded, her glare aimed not at Robyn, but at the judge. Janelle sat quietly, her hands placed on a legal yellow pad, waiting for her time. Robyn went on, her voice breaking more with every word. I didn't know where all of our money was going. I did not ask to be a priority. Kody said we were doing things as a family. I believed that. Then Janelle's attorney stood. Your Honor, she said sternly. We appreciate Miss Brown's sentiments, but we would like to enter financial documents into evidence. She handed a folder to the bailiff, who brought it to the judge. These are bank statements for 2021 and 2022, demonstrating more than $75,000 in purchases that originated directly from the Brown Family LLC account and were spent entirely on Robyn Brown's home, furniture, appliances, landscaping, and several remodels. Meanwhile, my client Janelle Brown was paying out of pocket for her family's expenses while living in an RV on raw land with no amenities. Gasps traveled throughout the courtroom. The judge cocked an eyebrow and thumbed through the papers. One after another was underlined. $9,800 for handmade couches, $4,200 for nursery furniture, $11,000 for a home security system, and scores of purchases from an upscale design shop in Flagstaff. Every withdrawal was made from the LLC account, authorized by Kody, without evidence of discussion or ratification by Christine or Janelle. Janelle leaned slightly toward her attorney and whispered something. Her lawyer nodded and stood again. We'd also like to highlight that during the same period, our client requested financial support to install a well on her portion of the Coyote Pass property. That request was denied by Mr. Brown, citing a lack of funds. The contrast was brutal and undeniable. The judge looked up. Miss Brown, she said, speaking to Robyn softly, did you know these payments were from a communal family account and not an individual fund? Robyn faltered, appearing dazed. Kody said we were fine, that it was all taken care of. I didn't demand to see reports. I just trusted him. And did you ever wonder why Christine and Janelle weren't receiving comparable financial aid? Robyn shook her head slowly. It didn't even come to me. I guess I figured that they were fine with what was happening. I didn't know they were being excluded. Christine let out the softest sigh. To her, that response spoke volumes. The judge nodded and jotted down a note. Very well. You may be seated. Robyn got back to her seat beside Kody, her hand shaking. Kody touched her arm, but his expression was frustration and confusion. There was no doubt that he was not expecting the degree of scrutiny, the tough facts, or the repercussions. Then the judge addressed him. "Mr. Brown, come on up here." Kody rose, hooked his suit jacket, and made his way to the witness stand. The courtroom waited with emotion-sharpened eyes and curiosity. He was the man at the center of the storm. The husband, the father, the leader, and now the defendant. He sat, settled the microphone, and cleared his throat. "I want to begin by saying I never intended this to occur," he said. This was not the plan. I loved these women. I loved my family. I attempted to maintain the family together. I did everything in my power. I did not arrange for things to occur this way." There was silence. But things changed. People changed. Christine pulled away. Janelle was always independent. I didn't know they felt so abandoned. Janelle's eyebrows flicked up, but she said nothing. "I'm not an accountant. I made decisions based on what I thought was best at the time. I didn't steal from anyone. I didn't try to cut anyone out. I was just trying to manage everything." Christine's lawyer stood. "Mr. Brown, did you realize that your actions denied Christine and Janelle any legal right to property or money?" "I didn't consider it in those terms," Kody answered, his tone increasing. "We always discussed things. We always discussed things. I thought we were like-minded." "Did you specifically tell them that their names wouldn't be on the property titles?" Kody paused. "No, not exactly. I didn't think it would matter. We were a family. I thought you thought they would never leave." The lawyer broke in. "So it didn't matter." Kody leaned back, his eyes narrowing. "No, I didn't think they'd leave. That's true. But I didn't do this to hurt anybody. I was trying to hold it all together while everything was breaking apart." "Would you confirm," the attorney asked cautiously, "that your actions, despite intent or not, left Christine and Janelle financially and legally severed from the very family they helped create?" Kody glared at the table. "Yes," he breathed. The courtroom moved. The admission, tiny as it was, hung there like a verdict all its own. Christine lowered her eyes, tears bright but unwavering. Janelle's hand squeezed her pen hard. The judge leaned forward. "Mr. Brown, the testimony put before us indicates not only a breakdown in leadership, but a mishandling of shared resources. Whatever your intentions were, financial disparity, missing documents, and exclusion of parties who contributed financially is greatly troubling." Kody was quiet, defeated in stance if not in heart. "You may return to your seat," the judge instructed. As he returned to the courtroom wasn't quiet, it was charged. Everyone present knew what they had just seen. Not a piece of testimony, but a reckoning. A man who was once at the center of a plural marriage now seemed smaller, encircled by receipts, regrets, and the wives once who trusted him with everything. Outside the courtroom, the press was already spinning. Headlines in the making. "Robyn weeps, Kody cracks, $75K spent on Robyn, while other wives struggled. Family empire now a legal nightmare." Inside, Christine and Janelle sat together, not triumphant, but vindicated. Because this battle was never ever about money. It was about truth. And then the bombshell. One the courtroom wasn't prepared for, but everyone would never forget. It wasn't boisterous. There was no bang of the gavel, no gasp in the gallery. Just the soft whisper of a binder opened by Janelle's attorney and a gentle sentence that stilled the air. "Your Honor, we'd like to introduce new evidence, an independent financial audit. It was provided to us anonymously by a source closely affiliated with the Brown family." The judge's eyebrows lifted slightly, and for a second, even Kody's legal team looked rattled. Kody himself blinked, confusion furrowing into disbelief. He leaned toward his attorney, whispering quickly, his voice caught just loud enough to hear. "What audit? Who leaked that?" Janelle sat quietly, her jaw clenched. Christine stood, her fingers together, white-knuckled and still. The bailiff presented the binder to the judge. She opened it deliberately, eyes moving over the contents as Janelle's attorney proceeded. "This report covers a 5-year time frame," she described. "It lists all revenue streams associated with the Brown family LLC, such as payments from TLC, brand name sponsorship agreements, book royalty payments, and merchandise revenue. What it shows is eye-opening. She paused and read out loud. Several direct deposits from TLC, each over $50,000, were transferred not into a business account, but into a personal checking account in Kody Brown's name. There it sat. The courtroom rocked like a boat hit by a wave. These monies were not shared equitably with the other members of the family, the attorney went on. No record exists of fair sharing. Rather, large amounts were taken out within days of deposit and diverted to directed purchases, nearly all related to the renovation and furnishing of Robyn Brown's residence. She turned the page. For instance, on March 3, 2021, $57,000 was deposited into TLC. On March 5, $43,000 was transferred from that account to a vendor who does custom interior design. That same vendor was paid by the Brown account for Robyn's property on 3 different occasions. Kody's face grew white. Robyn gasped and covered her mouth. But the lawyer wasn't finished. Contrarily, at the same time, there are no financial disbursements or payments documented for Christine or Janelle. And worse, there is no record, none of their financial donations to the Coyote Pass property being logged, credited, or noted in any form. Christine's breath caught loudly. She leaned forward and whispered something to her lawyer. Her voice broke mid-sentence. The courtroom was briefly struck with emotion and lapsed into complete silence once more. The judge glanced up. Silence in the gallery. She instructed gently, but firmly. She read the audit, page after page, slowing down more than normal. The courtroom hung silent, still, the impact of each word coagulating in the room like concrete. When she finally spoke, she did so without warning. This evidence alters the scope of these proceedings. Kody's attorney jumped to his feet. Your Honor, with respect, we would like time to look at these documents. This information was not revealed during discovery, and we must check to see if it is authentic. The judge nodded. You will have that time. But until verification, this court is ready to take the issue beyond the limits of civil controversy. We are now considering possible financial fraud and deception. Kody leaned in, finally speaking out for the first time that day. Your Honor, I never did anything fraudulent. I was attempting to take care of my family. I didn't know. The judge waved him silent. Mr. Brown, you can speak. But remember that fiduciary responsibility exists even in verbal contracts when there is joint money involved. If you individually received income to be paid to a joint entity, and you redirected those funds without authorization or documentation, that will be viewed as serious misconduct. His mouth opened and closed. There was nothing more to say. Christine appeared dazed, but oddly serene, as though the truth, even in its most agonizing state, was being heard at last. Janelle merely nodded, to herself rather than anyone around her, as though she had been waiting for this moment to come for way too long. The lawyer went on presenting facts. There were also substantial cash withdrawals, most of them in excess of $10,000, taken within 48 hours of family arguments, especially following the move to Utah. We'd like to introduce text message records indicating Christine's continued demands to access her half of the TLC profits. Her demands were dismissed or overridden. Kody's lawyers attempted to object on the grounds of emotional context being irrelevant, but the judge permitted the text to be read aloud. One message, sent in December 2021, stated, Kody, I'm not asking for more than I gave. I just want what's fair. I spent years raising your kids, our kids. I need to move forward. Help me do that. No response was ever given. The judge heard that silence more loudly than any voice. Christine blinked away, tears in her eyes. Looking down, Robyn seemed to wish she could vanish. She sat immobile, hands on her lap, her chest hardly rising and falling with respiration. The court clerk revealed the judge's verdict. In consideration of the audit and evidence produced, the court is directing a complete forensic audit of all the financial transactions between the Brown Family LLC and ancillary personal accounts since 2015. Mr. Brown is directed to produce all personal and business bank statements, tax documents, property titles, and communication records within 14 days. She paused, then continued, non-compliance will lead to contempt of court and additional legal action. The courtroom came alive. Even the reporters, who had been professionally silent up until that point, shifted uncomfortably in their seats. already crafting the headlines in their minds. Kody sat motionless. He did not nod. He did not speak. It was the first time the man who once referred to himself as the patriarch seemed truly at the mercy of others. Janelle inched slightly forward, their shoulders grazing for the merest fraction of a second, a wordless display of solidarity. The court recessed early that morning, but the mood outside was charged. Journalists surged. Cameras snapped. Microphones were thrust in all directions. No one managed to get a word from Janelle or Christine. They strolled quietly to their car and drove off, protected by tinted windows and the knowledge that the secret was finally out in public. Kody and Robyn emerged from the courthouse to another scene. Shouts trailed behind them. Questions of fraud, favoritism, and next. Kody's grip on Robyn's elbow was firm, leading her through the tumult. But it was obvious that neither of them knew what to say. Within the courthouse, the judge stayed behind, now scanning the last few pages of the leaked audit. The figures didn't lie. The tale they told was unambiguous. A pattern of financial cronyism, mismanagement, and broken vows. And now, for the first time in their on-TV, dramatized, formerly glamorous lives, Kody Brown was not merely a man who was losing his family. The gavel came down with a solid crack. It wasn't the end to the day's proceedings. It was the sound of a broken family officially, publicly being torn asunder. The judge's tone was firm, measured and unflinching as she read out the court's interim orders. Effective immediately, she said, Coyote Pass property is frozen. No building, selling, transferring, or developing will occur until there is a complete and independent financial review. An audible gasp of shock was sounded from Kody's side of the room, but the judge wasn't deterred. TLC royalties and all associated income from family-based contracts, appearances, or promotional material will be divided equally among the first wives, Mary, Janelle, Christine, and Robyn, effective from the start of the 2020 season. Kody's knuckles turned white as he gripped the table. He opened his mouth to speak, but the judge raised a hand swiftly. I'm not finished, Mr. Brown. He sank back in silence. Mr. Brown and Mrs. Robyn Brown are hereby directed to provide a complete disclosure of all personal, family, and LLC account financial transactions for the last 5 years. This includes purchases, transfers, loans, and payments made to anyone affiliated with the Brown family business entity. There it was, the time of public accounting, not only for the man who asserted leadership of this plural home, but for the whole fantasy of equal standing that the wives had been bought with for decades. Court recessed. Outside the courthouse, a horde of cameras and reporters were already assembled. The doors had hardly swung open, before flashes illuminated the air, and microphones were waved forward. Kody led the way, flinging himself through the press with Robyn following hard on his heels. His face was flushed with fury, jaw working, eyes fixed ahead. He spoke not a word, but his posture told it all. Anger, incredulity, and a dash of humiliation. Robyn had oversized sunglasses on, lips pursed in a thin line, her silence more profound even than her tears. The previous day, she hurried along, trying to protect herself as much as possible from the melee. Christine stepped out second, and for one instant time seemed to stand still. She strode deliberately, her head held high, her face serene but inscrutable. The cameras recorded every moment. Her blonde locks caught the breeze, her blazer still freshly pressed from morning, and her hands unfisted, open, free. She said nothing, but she didn't have to. Her silence was power now. Janelle did pause though. She moved towards the microphones, gazed straight into the strobing lights, and spoke in a voice that was firm and indelibly clear. This isn't about revenge, she said. It's about fairness. It's about being heard. And that was it. No additional comment. No theatrics. Just reality. Within the courtroom, the scraping of chairs and shuffling of papers filled the now largely vacant room. The attorneys packed up, clerks took the exhibits, and the judge took a recess to chambers. But the wreckage of emotion lingered like smoke left after flames. It was not merely a case of law. It was the public unraveling of a whole system of belief. The Browns had once been a symbol for some of faith and determination, for others of trouble and complexity. But they had lived on television sets as a family for more than a decade. They ate dinner together, raised dozens of children, had birthdays, fought, constructed homes, celebrated holidays, and sold the illusion that plural marriage could work with enough commitment and faith. But now, that illusion was a courtroom document, and the pain showed nowhere more clearly than on the faces of those who had once referred to themselves as wives, sisters, and co-mothers. At home, Kody slammed the back door. He paced, gasping for breath, his arms waving as he spoke to the room. "I did everything for them," he bellowed. "I kept this family together for years, and this is how they thank me. Mud me, call me a criminal." Robyn sat at the edge of the couch, her hands locked in her lap. She didn't break in, not anymore. The feeling of the last few days had firmed into something she didn't know. Fear, maybe, or guilt. "I didn't know," she breathed to herself, rather than to him. "I didn't know it was going to all fall apart like this." Kody spun away from her, his expression twisted in incredulity. "You think I arranged this, that I wanted this sideshow?" "No," she replied quietly. "But I think you never imagined it would happen like this." At the same time, in a quiet cafe downtown, Christine and Janelle sat together in a booth, sipping lukewarm tea. For the first time in days they let themselves catch their breath. "I still can't get it," Christine said, "hearing it all put out there like that. What we thought, what we felt. It's different when it's true." Janelle nodded. "It was like the past 20 years of our lives were put under a microscope for good measure. And for once, we weren't the ones being asked questions. He was." Her voice had no glee in it, no smugness, just relief and fatigue. "I wonder what Mary's thinking," Christine said softly. Janelle shrugged. "I believe she's grieving too, in her way. She waited so long, hoping he'd return to her. But now she sees it, as we did. There was never to be a place for her at his table again." Back on social media, the internet ignited. Clips from the trial sketch flooded TikTok. Audio transcripts were being reenacted by creators, complete with dramatic music. Twitter threads pieced together years of footage, lining up every promise Kody had made with the evidence revealed in court. Reddit threads ran wild with speculation. Who leaked the audit? Did the other children know? Was this the end of Sister Wives, as the world knew it? TLC said nothing, but sources spilled whispers that the network was holding crisis meetings, attempting to determine how to turn the next season around in the wake of the legal controversy. What had started out as a reality show had turned into an on-air investigation. Some viewers were devastated, others claimed justice. But the voices ringing the loudest were those of women, viewers who once identified with the struggle of juggling motherhood, identity, partnership, and sacrifice. They cheered for Christine and Janelle for standing up, for walking out, for not wanting to be made invisible anymore. Back in court the following week, it would all go on again. Depositions, audits, possibly even criminal referrals if financial fraud were established. But for now, the dust had settled on one inescapable fact. This was no longer a family struggling to remain intact. It was people, particularly women, struggling to regain their voice, their value, and their future. And if that included making a once-honored patriarch a defendant, then so be it. For the illusion of oneness had long since been destroyed. And what was left was not shame. It was clarity.